For June 21st, 2018, call to order. I'm going to turn this directly over to Noreen, since Noreen and Chris Harlow were the two people that put this together, and it has to do with banking. Noreen, you're on.
Thank you. Hi, folks. First of all, I just want to say on the little agenda, I am going to move Amy to be the first up as a special request, if that's all right. With that said, I met with some of you in the winter, but not everybody. But really, our aim right now is to create a feeling of comfort with the community. They're going to have to hook up to the sewer system, and we're estimating it can vary so much, but it could be anything from maybe as little as 5,000 to maybe as much as 15,000, you know, depending on where their septic tank is located and what configurations, you know, they might encounter, like rose bushes or decks or driveways or all those things. And then, of course, there are some people who may want to go through their unfinished or finished basement, and you know that could cause an expense, but it's a time to think about it if somebody was thinking about that. And there could be duct work that could add expense. And so, you know, it's a really broad range. You know, we're telling people the average to expect for kind of like a straight shot, so to speak, would be, you know, maybe 7,000 to 10,000. So there will be this group of 650 homes and businesses in the South Pleasant Bay area that will be in our first phase. So that's 650 people. 5 years later, there's going to be the northern portion of that territory, and that will be another 400 people, plus Chatham's, you know, in the process of doing this as well. So, you know, we're kind of hoping that, you know, some local banks might be interested in kind of cornering the market, you know, on that group, so to speak. But from our point of view, we're not bankers, and we're not going to try to tell people, you know, how they should finance whatever their needs are. Our role is simply to make it so the community knows that the local banking community is aware of the project. So if they walk in 2 years and say, you know, I'm concerned, I'm gonna need $10,000, you know, to do this, and what do you have? So at least our local banking community will be aware of the project, can come to us with any questions, and take a little stress out of it for the community. So that's really in very much overview where we're coming from. So I know I had this conversation with Amy on a very cold winter day last year. And I don't know what you might have to say. Also, too, there might be some people who might want to do home equities and start now, you know, if they're doing things, but what do we know?
Right. Well, I can talk about a number of different options. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start with our credit card. So when you're talking about $7,000 to $10,000, obviously there's features to a credit card and benefits that people might like. There's cash back features, there's airline miles, and the rate is dependent on obviously someone's credit score. And they might actually like that, and that's no cost to anybody. The next thing that possibly might be something that someone might be interested in is a personal line of credit.
Amy, I'm sorry, I'm going to pause you for 1 second.
Sure.
Because I introduced everybody before the camera went on, so I would ask you to introduce yourself now.
Sure. I'm Amy Kamengay. I'm the store manager of the Harwich Port location of TD Bank, and I've been with them now for a little over 12 years.
Thank you.
You bet. Our unsecured loans, right now, I can tell you that it is dependent on your credit score. The lowest rate we have is 8.99%, and it can go up as high as 14.99, and that's as of today. The minimum to borrow on that is $5,000, and I think the maximum right now is $20,000. We also have an unsecured line of credit which is based on prime, wherever prime is, and you add 2 points to that, and that's as of today. And that is a line of credit, well, sorry, to go back to the loan, the unsecured loan, that can go out from 12 months to 5 years. The unsecured line of credit can go out to 10 years. And right now there is an annual fee on that of $25. So it's kind of nice. You get that, and it can go up to $50,000. You talked about a home equity, and those are very popular. Our minimums on home equities are $25,000. You mentioned if there's other home repairs, so that could be. A lot of people sometimes apply and get more than they need, but they only pay on what they use. With rates as they are, it is dependent on what your credit score is again. We do lend the best rates up to 80% loan to value. We do go up to 89.99% on a home. It's possible it's tax deductible. You really need to talk to your accountant about that. So you can, the more you borrow, the lower the rate, but you only pay on what you owe. So that's something to always think about. Sometimes people get more than what they need, but they get the lower rate. For example, they might not have a mortgage on their home and get $100,000, but they only use $20,000 during that period. So it's a 10-year draw period. At the end of 10 years, if you owe money, you have options. It can either turn into a loan, which is another 20 years out, or you can reapply and it can turn back into a home equity line of credit again. During the life of our lines of credit, we have something called fixed rate option. So if you feel that the rate is going up, prime is moving, and you'd like to lock in a rate, you have an opportunity to do that 3 times during the life of the home equity line of credit. And they have to be $5,000 or more. And this can give some people peace of mind. Some people go out further than what is necessary because it brings their monthly payment down. So there's no prepayment option on those at that point, and you can pay it off at any time. We do offer a home equity loan. It's fixed. It's like what we used to call a second mortgage way back when. They just now call them home equity loans. And they also can go anywhere between 5 years and 30 years, depending on what you're comfortable with. I think I've hit on all the features and benefits of the different loan options we might have. Do you have any questions?
So typically, Amy, someone comes in and says, I have to hook up to this darn sewer. And by the way, there's 2 steps to it. One is they have to hire a professional engineer to design the system. And then they have to go out and get quotes from, someone like a dollar company or whatever to, actually do the installation. So I'm making this up, but there may be, they need maybe $1,500 to get started, and then they have to pay the rest, when they get the construction done. But if someone comes in and says, okay, I got to hook up to the sewer, and they give you their credit information is, applying for one of your products, what's the typical turnaround time? A couple days, I mean?
On an unsecured line of credit or loan, it depends on if it's personally owned, if it's in a trust. I can say those close pretty quickly, within a week, week and a half, if all the documents are collected and brought in right away. On a home equity line of credit, again, it depends on how you've titled your home. We've closed as fast as, right now, 15 days. And as far out as 30, 35 days, depending, again, if it's in a trust.
So 30 days is probably enough time, if they knew they have to get something done 2 months from now, if they come in, they should have their information back to them in 30 days, some kind of approval as long as they qualify.
If they qualify and they bring in all of the documents that we're required to gather, that the government says we have to gather now in order to make the loan go through, yes.
And if someone decides to do it on a credit card, how quickly do you turn a credit card?
Those are right away.
Yeah,
we know within, sometimes instantaneously. that they're approved. And we actually print them right there at my location. So if you're instantly approved, I can get your credit card to you right then.
Okay.
The other thing that we do have, and she's not with me today, is we do have a mortgage originator. So sometimes mortgages can be a great product for people who want to rewrite a mortgage and possibly add debt that might be out there to bring everything down. Or if they don't have a mortgage on their home and that is something that they're interested in doing. The only thing with mortgages, sorry Felicia, is there's lots of closing costs to them. So whereas with these, there's none. So.
Okay, and I have a question. Is there a difference between somebody that owns their home versus having the house in a trust? Is there a difference when they're applying for it?
Well, it can be in a trust because
all right.
You've got trustees on your trust, which are given in the trust. It tells them that they are allowed to do certain things. And I've never seen it say that they couldn't take care of the house or do what they needed to do.
All right.
So, I mean, trust documents always go to legal and they're looked over.
All right.
So there are two different kinds of trusts. My brain just went blank. There's revocable trusts
And you're
and irrevocable, and we do not do irrevocable trusts. We do revocable trusts because those can be changed. Irrevocables cannot be changed.
All right. Anybody else with questions?
Yes, I have one further. It's certainly a bit early to talk about this now, but, you know, let's say about 18 months from now. You know, construction, you know, assuming everything goes by plan, which never does. But, you know, construction could be beginning next May or June. People wouldn't be hooking up then, they wouldn't be hooking up for a year or so after that, but the actual construction, that the town is paying for, could be beginning then. So, you know, I would think when people start to see that, that will start to spur a lot of activity. I didn't know if there were any things that the local banks could do to create a sense of ease. So like now I know I have to do something. If I go into a bank and I go up to the teller and I say, you know, I don't know what to do. I have to pay for this sewer hookup and I don't even know what it is or why it is. Will you folks be able to do anything to educate your employees and things like that so they'll be ready for questions from some people who might be excited, some people who might be not so excited in terms of what they have to do?
I can speak for TD, and the employees, at least in my location, are, I basically train them to pick up on verbal clues of
Right.
whatever any customer comes in and
Right.
wants to discuss. And some of them are comfortable depending on how long they've been with the bank and, you know, what their areas of comfort
Right.
is.
Right.
And others will automatically just ask them to come over and sit with one of
Yeah.
us that sits
Yeah.
on the platform side of things.
Well, you know, I mean, it's 10,000 is 10,000. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, buying a beach blanket with it or hooking up to a sewer system, you know, but for some reason it feels different to people. I think partly because, you know, they're being mandated to do it. So even though it's still $10,000, but it feels a little bit different to people. So that's good to know that there'll be an educated group of lenders waiting to receive them. Thank you.
You know, I
Thank you.
just follow that up and say, as we get closer to the time frame, and by the way, the time frame is, they start construction, say, May of 19. The main line doesn't finish until 2 years later, which is basically, I think, June, we're saying, of 21. And people have to hook up within a year of that time period. At least now, that's what the rules are, the regulations. But I would say, as we get closer to that point, if any of the banks are interested, I'm sure any one of us would, or whoever's on the committee at that point, would be happy to come down, and I don't know if you, like a weekly meeting with your team or something, and tell them about the program, basically.
Absolutely.
Or
Anytime.
educate them on wastewater, I guess, the way to do it. So.
We had a great conversation, happy to.
We did.
I meet monthly with my team, so, you know, I'm happy to invite anybody that would like to come.
Good.
And as we get closer, if anybody just wants to pop in and educate possibly even my platform more to help them out with any concerns that anybody might be having.
And if you folks have any questions over the course of the construction of the project, feel free to contact anybody or me, as you have that as a contact name.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Well, by the way, on the Harwich town website, there's a special tab called Wastewater, where all the information we gather and generate, and the videos, like tonight's meeting will be on there at some point, so.
And that's good to know too, because we
Yeah.
have a lot of people that come in and ask
Right.
different things about the town.
Right.
So,
Good.
yeah,
Thanks.
great, thank you guys. Oh,
Let,
yes.
let me add too that it's incredibly important to hold on to the street list so that there are still people out there who either think they're included in this when they're not. And so you probably want to qualify the people as actually needing to have sewering done now, because we keep encountering people who are either convinced they don't have to have it, or alternatively think they're included in this, and you whip out their address on the list, and they're not, but somehow. So it's entirely possible you'll get someone coming for a loan who is not going to be sewered.
We'll make sure.
Yeah.
We'll make sure.
But you can always sign them up for a credit card.
That's
Yeah.
right. By the beach
Once they're in
blanket.
the bank, you gotta get them, right?
Only if that's what they want.
There you go.
Only if that's
All
what
right.
they want. Thank you very
Thanks,
much for
Amy.
your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you,
to see you,
Amy.
Russ.
You too, Amy.
I'll be seeing you. And so, Russ, is it Labby?
Correct.
Good. And I didn't know what light you might have to shed on Cape Cod Five's benefit. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Felicia will come.
Okay.
Felicia will join us.
Absolutely. And Russ, I'm sorry, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Russ Labby from Cape Cod Five. I'm the consumer and home equity manager. I've been with the bank for about 14 years now. I was brought into this conversation kind of third party through Suzanne Barry, so
That's right.
I'm trying to educate myself as well as far as what some of the needs may be as far as the committee, what, currently what the bank has to offer is gonna be very similar to what Amy had to present as far as, we have a home equity line of credit. As far as our home equity line of credit, it's a 10-year, a $10,000 minimum, so it's a little bit lower. We don't underrate based on credit score or anything like that, so we have one rate. Customers are eligible for discounts if they, sign up for electronic payment, things of that nature. As far as the term, it's a 10-year available draw period, so customers can borrow and repay over that, 10-year as frequently as they want after that 10-year availability period. Currently, the home equity loan, or home equity line of credit would turn into a 15-year repayment period. So it's truly a 25-year mortgage currently, 10 years of available draw, 15 years to pay back if you haven't brought it to zero after the 10-year period. We also offer a fixed rate home equity loan with that particular product. Again, that's a $10,000 minimum payment. That's a fixed rate loan. Amortized just like a second mortgage would be. Again, there's one rate that we offer. We're talking 2 years out as far as, or a year and a half out, so rates are gonna vary, so quoting rates right now may not bring a ton of value, but we do offer that, and it's, very competitive as far as where we sit with that particular rate. With both of those products, we do go up to 80% loan to value. So as long as the combined loan to value is 80% or less, we can, approve the loan and move forward, assuming they meet, other underwriting requirements. One option that we do have that's, unique is we did partner with Mass Housing. So we do have a Mass Housing home improvement loan that we can offer to borrowers. And the nice thing with this particular home equity loan, is a solution where we can go up to 100% of the value. And, where it's with Mass Housing, they do set the rate, but we have a lot of latitude, flexibility as far as what we can do on that. And this particular, need fits what their criteria happens to be as far as staying within regulation, making sure that the properties are maintained as they're supposed to be. So it's a really nice option for, individuals that may have a higher loan to value that,
So, excuse me, so,
Yep.
so this project, this sewer project would fit in with that master?
It-
Because Suzanne talked to me a little bit about it, I had not heard about it prior to that.
Yeah, so this particular program that we're partnered with Mass Housing on does have some income limit, requirements or limitations, so they are, looking to make sure that certain income restrictions are adhered to, so, it won't be a fit for all borrowers, but definitely, if we have a kind of median income earner, I believe it's $92,000 for a household of two, and I believe it's $104,000 for a household of four.
But that's much more generous than like the affordable housing limits or things like that.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's
we-
much more, should I say, middle class or workforce
Yep.
amount?
Yep, and what we require with this is, that the homeowners do obtain quotes or bids for the work to be done. They get to select it, and again, that fits kind of what you were describing before as far as the borrower going out, getting the engineered plot plans. There is a limitation on the amount we can lend. It's, $50,000 is the maximum amount, again, based on what you guys were describing. That would fit within that current.
So for this mass housing, then they need to know exactly what this, the amount is gonna be before they can get it, versus if you did a home equity line of credit or a loan, then you don't necessarily, you might tell them what it's for, but
Right.
it could be for anything.
Right.
All right, all
Yeah,
right.
so that is one
All right.
definite nuance, is you have to have
Okay.
an idea of what the
So
cost is gonna be.
it's going to be beforehand?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because again, with the mass housing loan is, the funds that are gonna be dispersed out cannot exceed the project cost. So, if the project was $20,000, that's the maximum that would be actually, approved or
Mhm.
dispersed. So
Okay.
we make sure that it kind of fits within those guidelines, parameters that mass housing's established.
okay.
Can they, so let's say, I had my engineer and, I kind of had an idea that my project was gonna be $12,000.
Yep.
But I hadn't yet got the actual quotes from a licensed installer or whatever. Could I come to see you and kind of see if I qualified in general? Or do I really need those specific to the penny quotes in hand?
Yeah, it's kind of two-phase, right? So you have the program requirements, so
Right.
we can look and see if you fit the particular program requirements as far as the income and things of that nature. To get a true approval, we do want those quotes in
Right.
hand, so,
Yeah.
we would definitely want those quotes. And, to run credit, things like that,
Sure.
we'd want the quotes in hand,
Yeah.
as that project moves forward.
One other quick question to that.
Yep.
Let's say, that they get a quote and they go to do the work and something comes up that unexpected, okay, and it's going to be more. Then how does that work?
In that particular situation, we haven't come across that yet, so the bridge I would
Good,
cross
good.
as far as that. Usually, there's always little nuance
Yeah.
balances that are there. I think oftentimes, the contractors may kind of buffer in that
Okay.
difference too, but that would be, something that we would sit down and kind of reevaluate.
All right.
Obviously, we also have a lot of retired people, and so how does that work with the income requirement that is part of the mass housing?
As far as does retirement income,
Yeah, I mean,
Considered
obviously,
in
they
that
have
picture?
a very different income stream than,
and so it's in that point, it's a fixed income, so,
Yeah.
With that in mind, as long as they're below those thresholds that mass housing has, kind of defined, which, between now and 2 years could adjust depending on
Mhm.
what's happening in our particular economy. But, as long as they're below those thresholds that have been established, that income would be, considered and used for this particular program. So, it is nice for that kind of individual that may not have, the 80% loan to value. And, the nice thing is we're not necessarily rating them up and giving them a higher rate for going over that 80%. So, currently this particular program is at 5%, so it's very competitive fixed rate, fixed term loan. And the minimum on this particular program is 7,500.
I see.
And the terms kind of vary. We have some latitude, but the terms vary between 5 and 15 years. So, you know, it really depends on the need, the repayment, things of that nature.
Two things, actually. At some point, Russ, I would love it if I could actually get the list of what the income what the limits are. Is there some way I could get that?
Yeah, I can get that to you.
That would be
Definitely
great.
get that over
Yeah,
to you.
just to have it for people. I'd love to see that. Now, I don't imagine this would affect anything, but I'm not a banker. So if I own my home in East Harwich, and of course I have my home down in Florida too, and that's my official residence, does that affect anything to do with this? Not really?
On that particular program, they do look at primary residence.
I
They
see.
want it to be your primary
Okay,
residence.
primary only, yeah.
Owner occupied. And in that particular program, they don't allow for trusts. So it
Mhm.
couldn't be an irrevocable or a
Sure.
revocable trust. It has to be, you know, owned either individually or jointly
Mhm.
amongst, you know, the people.
But for your more common, like home equity things, if my official residence was Florida, that shouldn't be
No,
as long as I own the home?
Correct, so when we look at the kind of standard products that, you know, are offered through Cape Cod 5 as far as our home equity loan or our home equity line of credit, we do, you know, second homes, vacation homes in the equity kind of world.
Sure.
We do not do investment property, so as long as it's either owner occupied or, you know, a second or vacation home,
Mhm.
we can do that. And with the, you know, the traditional home equity loan or home equity line of credit, we do allow for revocable trust. We do
Mhm.
not allow for irrevocable trust for kind of the same reasons that Amy had mentioned, where they can't be modified or changed. It makes it a little bit more challenging, so.
Since you have two locations in town, does it matter where people go if they're interested? I mean, eventually? Does
Yeah,
it-
eventually, you know, either spot should be able
Okay.
to, you know, help and manage that through, and, you know,
Right.
kind of the same thing as borrowers come in or individuals come in. You know, our staff is trained to kind of pick up on what their needs are
Okay.
and work with them to try to ease their concerns and make it, you know, as easy as
Mhm.
possible.
Because
So,
it's really about their needs
Sure,
right.
versus, gee, we've got 20 things we can do, what do you want to do?
right.
Right.
Whether it be a home equity or a mortgage opportunity, I think that we all try and take as much time with the borrower as we need to, because they don't do this every day, whether it be a home equity or a mass housing rehab. We might be speaking Greek to a lot of people.
Right.
And we want to pull that back so that the time is spent discussing what their goals are. I mean, some people aren't going to be in their home for a very long time. They could be in their home for 5 years. Maybe their plan is to sell and retire. There's all of those kind of conversations that we want to be part of, even though this, hookup is the
Right.
most important thing for them today. We also want to better understand what their needs are, so whatever program that we put them in is going to be the most suitable for them. And I know whether it be Amy with, the credit card and the this and that, or Cape Cod 5 with all of our offerings, I'm sure that the goal all of us have is to make sure that all of our customers and potential customers feel comfortable with the programs that we offer and really explain it in such a way that they can get the comfort level that you're trying to provide them with having
Right.
this meeting. And I'm sure as it gets closer, there'll be more questions. And we're always available. I brought some business cards. I mean, a conversation is a good thing to have before you
Sure.
really need to have the conversation. And that's something that if people are concerned about, gee, what is available, setting up an appointment to come in and talk to a loan officer might
Right.
just be the thing that makes them feel more comfortable. I mean, every town is going to go
Sure.
through this process, so it's something that we're all gonna have to deal with regardless of where we live. Russ lives in Harwich, I live in Orleans, it's all coming.
Sure.
That's right.
So, for
Now-
all of us, I think taking the time will benefit.
One of the interesting
Every
things
one of us.
in East Harwich in particular, since it's the first area we're gonna sewer, we've been talking with the realtors. I met with them, I don't know, a month or so ago and just explained things to them. But if you start looking at the timeline and say from now, it's 3 years out when somebody's not to hook up, they're asking questions like, well, you know, if someone's selling a house out there right now, do we disclose to the buyer that's coming from New York that, hey, in 3 years, you're gonna have to hook up to the sewer, even though there might be some adjustments to Title V right now? And the answer is yes. I mean, you get a fiduciary responsibility to do
Right.
that.
Right.
And there'll be some folks, and we've seen some at some of our meetings, that would say, hey, I just spent 12 grand putting in a brand new Title V septic system, and you're telling me in 3 years it's no good, I gotta rip it out and then hook up to the sewer for another 12 grand? You know, there's those kinds of things are coming.
Right, right.
And because it's all about money, you know, people aren't too happy in some cases, but those things will happen. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, as you're well aware, that, you know, transfer of property, you've gotta comply with Title V.
You have to comply.
And
There's-
as we get closer and closer, you know, some people may be able to go to the Board of Health and say, hey, you know, I'm 3 months from getting hooked up, you know, I mean, there'll be some things that happen, there'll be special cases. The Board of Health at the moment has said that within, just like Chatham has said, you know, the regulations say within a year, the pipe going by your house, you have to hook up. You already know there's gonna be some variances, people are gonna come and say, hey, it's not ready yet, I can't hook up, I'm selling my house, blah, 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 you know, those kinds of things. There will be
Right.
some variances, but as they have said to us, they're not gonna let somebody just not hook up. Eventually, they have to hook up, so it's coming.
And the earlier the conversation for folks.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's what we're trying to do, that's our job.
Truly
Mhm.
is better, especially if you have, you know, seniors that are not fully retired but are on their way to
Right.
retirement and know their income is not gonna quite be the same. I mean, for a lot of them, an earlier conversation might be helpful, and maybe you put a line of credit on your house
Mhm.
now in anticipation.
Mhm.
We all have to be thoughtful about how we all approach this.
Sure.
And I think, you know, from Russ's point of view, because he does so much with the home equities, and from mine, who do, you know, as many mortgages as we can, hopefully, the idea is that we make suggestions that are gonna benefit the clients. And other than truly saying, go into the branch, talk to a
Right.
loan officer, get some information. I think that is just a very helpful approach. I don't think that having a conversation necessarily with a teller in the lobby is gonna give you the comfort
Mhm.
that you want, even though all, you know, in today's world, every single employee of a bank has general information. So I think just having the time to go talk to your lender, go talk to your bank about what's gonna be best for you. That really is the impetus we should all be.
The other thing that could,
Focused on.
the other thing that could happen, just be prepared for it, there are some neighborhoods that have said to us, hey, we're gonna try and go to, we're gonna find, say, a couple of professional engineering firms, and we're gonna have them come in, we're gonna have like a neighborhood thing and have them come in. And maybe we can get some kind of a, just call it group buy, basically, between the engineering work and the construction work. So, you know, maybe, you know, they have, make this up, you know, coastal engineering comes in and says, okay, we can do this and that and that. And then they all say, okay, now we're gonna go to these 3 contractors, and we're gonna get quotes, and everybody's gonna do the same, you know, on the street. And it could be that at that point, they may say, hey, Cape Cod 5, will you come over and talk to our neighborhood, sort of thing. And I'm sure you'd be happy to do that, you know. But there will be some groups, and we've had some neighborhoods that are pretty active. And, you know,
What a great idea.
they've been active with us, yeah. And they're thirsting for knowledge. What they really wanna know is, where do I connect? and how much is it gonna cost? That's what they care
Right,
about.
right.
And at the moment, until the design is done, we can't tell them where they're gonna connect, but we are communicating with them that we will be telling them where we think we want them to connect. And then there's some discussion that can happen, well, I wanna be on this side of the driveway or that side, or, this or that, before you get into the actual installation. So there'll be some negotiation. Most people probably just say, oh, that location's fine, I don't really care. But there is a requirement to separate the sewer from the water pipes that are already there by at least 10 feet, so, that kind of dictates some of where it's going.
Okay.
It's an adventure.
Well, it's worth thinking through too, your comments about what if it goes over. It's worth thinking about if they bring in a picture of the backyard and there's a stone wall. Yeah, that might be something that they want to consider when they're estimating what kind of loan
Right.
that
True,
they're going to
very
get.
true.
Absolutely.
So, and likewise, someone who comes to you and wants a loan to put up a stone wall, you might want to counsel them to check their address. Just had somebody ask me that. Oh, am I in trouble? I just spent a great deal on a stone wall, and luckily they're not on the list, but they had not checked.
So on the database, because I go frequently in to just see what values are and see what's going on as part of my job.
You mean the assessors database?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
So is there a list of all the addresses?
In
Or
your
it's right
package?
here, I
Streets,
missed
the
that?
street list, yeah.
Okay,
There it is.
oh, this is it?
That's it.
Well, it's everybody on that street, so. I
Right,
mean,
Right.
right.
And there's 650, that's in this first phase. That will cover the next 5 years.
The first phase, which is actually called the second phase, but that is the,
Right. Well, that's
Oh, good.
engineer speak.
Good. Well then,
That's good.
that's terrific. That's a lot easier for people, knowing.
and for you.
And for me,
Right.
or,
Right.
and especially in East Harwich,
Mhm.
meaning all these streets are pretty much right around the corner from
Right.
the branch.
Right, that's right.
That just came
Well,
out in
you're-
April,
Well,
that was the
and the branch, by the
finalized.
way, is gonna have to hook up, so
Yes.
That's
We'll know
call
firsthand.
headquarters and say we need a loan.
I didn't think of that.
We'll know firsthand, that's for sure.
Now, the Harwich office, you'll probably replace it before we get the sewer down there. It's not coming for a long time in
Yeah.
Harwich.
Yeah,
It's phase 8
taking
or
a while.
something like that, but, yeah, so. And I think you probably read or heard that, we have our agreement with Chatham, the waste from East Harwich is going to the Chatham facility. And we're in negotiations with Yarmouth and Dennis to build a treatment facility, and Dennis would take care of the rest of what we have to sewer. And if we did that, there'd be no treatment plant in Harwich, which would be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
No, I've heard, there's nothing statistical to base it on that I know of, but that Chatham doesn't seem to have, done like a run on the banks, and people first of all, I don't even know if that's true or not. But second of all, speculation was that, well, Chatham, perhaps many people already have their own home equities or other products, so that, perhaps 5,000 to 10,000 is not, an earth-shaking event. I don't really know, but I don't know if you've heard of
Well,
any.
I know banks don't want to ever say run on the banks. I
Okay.
know
And that's why I always say, I'm not a
probably don't want to
banker.
say that. But I do think, when I meet with people, and I'm sure everyone has a different approach, I always suggest that clients, if they can, obtain a $10,000 or $15,000, $25,000 home equity, because as we age, all of us have different needs that happen immediately, and we don't have access to money that we would normally have. And so I think for most of us, a home equity is sort of a nice insurance policy. So the folks in Chatham may already have those.
They ran. Yeah.
Those new clients coming in want to have one. But it is recommended for many people, just because it's an easy access to have for an emergency. And for some, this will be an emergency situation for them, something they hadn't planned on.
Right.
So, home equities probably are far more common today than ever before.
They definitely are.
I know Russ is busy. We can't always get a hold
Keep
of him
straight out.
because he's so busy, but I think, home equities are an easy approach. As Amy mentioned, there's many products that come without fees. Mortgage lending, my main focus, has fees, but there's ways to work around those fees as well, to wrap them in. It really depends upon what's gonna benefit the client, and the client doesn't always know until they have a conversation.
So
I'm
now-
guessing you may find a couple of cases where somebody actually refinances their mortgage to include this and maybe gets a better rate.
Correct. Well, I mean, people are thinking about rates today.
Yeah.
Right.
Prime does go up, that's what home equities are based on. Mortgage lending, is not based on prime. There's a little, sometimes those payments and those rates are a better option for customers. It all depends, and I think our minimum mortgage is $25,000. So, I know some lenders perhaps want to require clients to have higher loan amounts, but I've done my share of $25,000 mortgages because that's the need.
Right.
So,
So I'm going to ask a very silly question because I'm not a banker by any stretch of the imagination. What's the difference between a home equity loan and a home equity line of credit?
So home equity loan works like your traditional mortgage where it's fully amortized. You sign the paperwork today. You get the full amount dispersed out to you.
Right
And then you
away.
have a fixed payment, fixed payoff date.
That's the loan.
And yep, so everything's fully dispersed. Where the line of credit, you can sit there at a zero balance.
And just take it if and when
as
you need it.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I thought I'd clarify
Yeah,
that.
and one of the other key differences is typically on a line of credit, it is a variable interest rate,
Yeah.
where the home equity loan tends to be a fixed
Fixed.
interest rate. So,
so
Yeah,
your
yeah.
credit floats.
you know,
Is that
the-
what it is?
payment structures are different, so,
Yeah.
depending on the customer's needs, what they're doing. And I think that's where Felicia was saying, if you have somebody that's gonna be in the house for 5 years, an interest-only type of payment may suit their finances better than a fixed rate. There's flexibility, and that's where having that conversation and understanding the goals of the borrower, makes sense before you kind of choose the product for the borrower.
And who knows what kind of programs are gonna be around in 2 years?
Right.
Right,
that
exactly.
Our business continues to evolve based on the needs of all of us, the community.
Right.
So, we may have just this to offer or more. It's hard to look in that crystal
Yeah,
ball, right?
It absolutely is, and that's why I really appreciate people meeting with us in the winter and coming out, Suzanne, Amy, and others. Because, we almost want to say to the public, well, gee, could we wait like 2 years on that? It's really kind of, early to talk about rates and
Right.
things like that. But we had to try to speak, people were concerned, and so we tried to, strike the mean approach. So this is great as a start, and then contact us as you folks need further information. If people want neighborhood meetings, usually they don't with banking, but you never know.
Well, you don't know,
You know,
and
right.
we're certainly available to do that.
Right.
I think, probably for both Russ and I and Suzanne and
Mhm.
Amanda Constant, who's the
Okay.
branch manager in Harwich Port,
Mhm.
even though Harwich Port Center isn't part of the
Oh, it
the
doesn't.
first wave, doesn't really matter
No. Right.
because the client base that goes there
Right.
will
right.
have questions. So we'll all wanna be more
Yeah.
up to speed with what
Yeah.
goes on in the community so we can help.
The
those
branches,
that call
the
us.
branches that I actually picked were more coincidence. My only personal requirement was I wanted them to have physical premises in Harwich. I didn't want to get into the internet level where they
Right.
could be
Right.
anywhere. I
Right.
didn't want it to be banks that just had an ATM machine in a drugstore, because then you just go on forever, and people
Right,
can, so.
right, and I think
so-
most of us, when we're talking about finances
Mhm.
and long-term stories, we probably wanna meet face to face
That's right.
if we
Mhm.
can. I
Brick and
talk to a
mortar.
lot of
Yep.
customers on the phone, but eventually they all wanna meet
Right.
because there's a sense of security when you know
Mhm.
who you're talking to.
I think that was the big take-home from this meeting, is that, you know, you supplied some of the information that's available now. Things can and probably will change. But I think for the people that are out there that are concerned about where they're going to get the money, whether you're retired or you're middle income, I think there's a comfort in saying, hey, go talk to the people at your bank. It doesn't matter which bank you're going
Right.
to. Go talk to them. You can talk to them now and find out what your options are. Now, you might want to do something now. You might want to wait for 2 years. It's up to you, but go talk to them. Start now. Don't wait until you're ready to do something in 2 years or 3 years. And now all of a sudden, you know, everybody's running.
You're in
I
panic
don't want to use
mode.
that word, run on the bank, but, you know, running to the
Well,
banks.
they're anxious, they're anxious.
Yes, so talk now.
Hurrying.
Talk
Yeah.
now and get a feel for what, you know, what might work for you and what's available. And, you know, it doesn't hurt to go back in a year again and say, hey, does
No.
anything change?
No, not at all. And I do think that most lenders welcome conversations like this.
Mhm.
I just think a lot of people that haven't done a lot of borrowing, like, I don't know
Sure, and
anything
a lot of
about
people
loans.
haven't.
Mortgage loans, but other than that, so it's like, you know, I
We heard
wouldn't.
you're highly leveraged.
Oh, yeah. No, my son just tells me what I can spend. But so I don't know a whole lot about that, and I imagine there's other people out there that haven't done it for whatever reason and really don't know what's out there. I wouldn't have known there were all these different kind of options. So I think it's good that if the meeting was here, that, you know, people looking at this video will say, oh, maybe it tampers down that anxiety level to say, maybe I will go talk to my bank now and see
That's
what's
good.
available. And I'm hoping that's what comes out of this,
That's great.
yeah.
Well, also, there's just a certain number of installers and engineers, and what Chatham shared with us is that that can get backed up. So having everybody wait
To the last minute.
to the
Yeah.
last minute is not only perhaps not the best financial decision, but it may be particularly inconvenient if you're suddenly really wanted it for the summer and the only date available is January kind of scenario.
Sure.
So it
Right.
allows for planning it in multiple fashions, so.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, it's a
Very helpful.
little premature, but
great.
I think it's wonderful to have these conversations. And for disclosure, I'll mention that the committee did also meet with several representatives of Citizens Bank. Unfortunately, at the last minute, they had a conflict and weren't able to come tonight, so, but they were very interested in the project as well. So with that, any other questions, questions from anybody?
All right.
Very good.
All
Thank you.
right.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Can we have to go through the motion of,
Yes.
yes,
Adjourning your meeting.
pardon?
Motion adjourning the meeting.
Yes, yes,
you did.
we do, okay, so,
When's our next meeting? You might want to announce that.
July 3rd, July 3rd is our next meeting,
8:30 in the morning
8:30 in the morning,
in this room.
in this room. All right, what else do I need to do?
Any other business? to
Any
come
other
before
business?
the-
No,
Okay.
Did we approve the minutes?
we weren't gonna do
No,
that.
they're
this
not
evening.
on the, we don't do
Yeah,
those
next
on the
time.
evening ones.
No, this was strictly the banking,
Yeah, we'll move to adjourn.
What's your
okay.
title?
And I second.
Felicia?
Oh, I'm mortgage loan officer, and forgive me, I should have introduced myself.
That's all
I'm
right.
Felicia Holden.
I'm impressed I could read the name.
I'm really impressed. We made it bigger so all of us could read it.
Mortgage loan officer, gotcha.
Okay.
We're adjourned, right?
Adjourned,
All
yeah.
right, thank you.
Adjourned. All right.
Thank
Great,
you,
thank
folks.
you for
Thanks
asking.
very